Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, Alex Turbin. This week we're going to be doing Starblazers from 1987. It was published by Kamiko and was a four-issue limited series. But first, before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own artwork that helps support the channel. I produce a 12-page, full-size, full-color comic book every month for my Patreons. You can go to patreon.com and / Alexander Turbin to find my work. Like I said, it's 12 pages, full size, full comic called Random Access, and it's only $2 a month for this work. This is an older black and white version, and here's a newer one that is full color. There's three different stories, three rotating stories of Cyrene the Cleric, Queller, and the Death Knights, and they all are in sequence. You can also get these at alexanderturbin.com, and you can also contact me at alexturbin04401 at Instagram. If you like this content, please consider subscribing and following and hitting the notification bell and all that cool stuff. It helps get other people to check out this stuff. This week I'm doing Starblazers, which is one of my favorite cartoons / storylines of all time, and just pulling this out from my comic box, getting ready to read it so I can review it. I started hearing the Starblazers theme song, which is probably I guess you'd say Star Wars theme song and then Starblazers. Starblazers theme is just friggin' amazing, and it gets in my head and it will stay in there for hours and hours and hours. It was definitely one of my favorite cartoons growing up. It's the only one, except for maybe Dungeons and Dragons, that I would get up early, like 6 o'clock in the morning, to see. Everything else I could just watch later on or whatever. I didn't really care, but I definitely had to see Starblazers. People compare it to Star Wars, which I really don't understand. It actually came out in Japan before Star Wars, I believe, or maybe the same year. I think it's much closer to Battlestar Galactica. It's much more of a survival story than it is a war story. This though. Starblazers #1 picks up after the second season or second series. I can't remember how many seasons the first story arc was. I think must have only been one, and then because then there was the Comet Empire. Anyway, this is after the Comet Empire has been defeated, and it takes a look back at the Comet Empire and what's going on in their part of the universe and how they've suffered this defeat, and they're gonna go back and try to take the Earth again. The first few pages is lots of exposition, lots of writing, and it's all great storytelling. And when I read it, I hear the narrator from the TV show in my head, so it really is not unfavorable to read. It's really kind of a pleasure. The only bad part of a lot of exposition is you spend so much time reading that you don't really read the art. You don't really look at the art. So this is definitely a comic that I would suggest reading 2, 3, 4 times just to soak in all of the art and all of the writing, all that you can, which is really sometimes you have to do with comics. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad comic. It just means that there's a lot there. And as a comic reader, you kind of have to put a lot of effort into reading a comic. It's not like a book novel where you just read it and you absorb the information that way. You're having a lot of different senses go off when you're reading a comic, and so being a good comic book artist, you want to encapsulate all of those different senses, as many as you can. And the ones that you can't, like there's no sound in comic books, so you're going to have to facilitate that in some other way, whether it's a deep red for an emotion, or a blue, or a green. Those are just the colors, and the line work. You often have to use certain lines that can express emotion and bring sound into the equation. Um, but then, all of this exposition kind of fades away, and the story starts to come in. Here's the leader of the Comet Empire, which is cool. Almost every idea that they've ever had in Starblazers is cool. I mean, the comet with the city on top, where it's a swirling typhoon tornado. I mean, that is just a friggin' awesome concept. And I mean, I love the ships. The ships in Starblazers is just fantastic. It's the most mind-numbingly great artwork, and ship design. This is actually the very first time I learned foreshortening. I remember I was in sixth grade, and I was drawing the Yamato, which I didn't realize was the Yamato at the time. I just thought it was the Argo. um, but I was drawing it with a friend of mine. He had come over to spend the night, and we were hanging out and drawing. And I was drawing the Yamato, and I was drawing it flat and vertical, and so I could see everything. And he drew it like this. I'm like, mind blown. Like, all of the scenes that I'm seeing from the cartoon, this kid is drawing, and he wasn't really an artist at all or anything. He just, I think what transferred from the show into his brain and onto the page was a foreshortened Argo, and so it became awesome. Here's a lot of storytelling, and a lot of exposition, a lot of dialogue, but it's all telling the story, and there's no action going along, so you just kind of sit back, relax, take it all in, and when Derek Wildstar is talking, I'm hearing his voice in my head from the TV show. So that's what this has a lot going for it, is that it can really use the show's dynamism and whole ethereal effect, and it could just rely on that to bring you into the story. It's not like a movie that uses a book as its inspiration and its context. A comic can take a moving cartoon and kind of explore and go further on into what's going on in the universe. And so it's really great. I love these action lines, even though you don't really need it, because these are two actiony type characters, the Doctor and the robot. They're kind of the comedic effect, but it translates really well. The art. Oh, let's stick with the story. So the Comet Empire is attacking again for the second time. So they attack like a Mars base, and the Mars base is sending help from the art for them from Earth and the Argo. So they want the Argo to come, rescue them. But the Argo doesn't know that the Comet Empire is attacking. So they're repairing the ship from the previous battle with the Comet Empire and the giant spaceship comet asteroid thing. Excuse me. So that's part of their back dialogue, stating what's happened in the show previously and where the comic is taking off from there. So then they finally make it to, oh yeah, there's all kinds of rookies being trained to take over the Argo because they need to build more ships because the Air Force or whatever they call it has been decimated by the Comet Empire. So they need to train as many personnel as they can. So Derek Wildstar, who is the new captain because the old captain was killed I can't remember whether he was killed in the Comet Empire series or the first one. But the Comet Empire infiltrates the moon base or the Mars base or whatever, kills almost all of them and starts a fire. It's a distraction for the Argo because, as you see, there's all kinds of emergencies going on. So the Argo is like, stop the fire, help the injured, do all this stuff. So then they're caught unaware when on the way back from rescuing people from the Mars base. actually assassins have infiltrated the ships, and they return to the Argo and the assassins, which also look really cool. They infiltrate the Argo, and all of these other ships kind of blink into existence. And once again, it's the Argo against an insurmountable odds of winning, which is what the Argo is all about. The Argo is all about being Rocky. It's all about taking all those punches and getting back into the race, and then kicking ass. That is probably one of the greatest scenes in the Argo. Is the very beginning when it bursts out of the earthen shell. It has all this rust and mud and gunk, and it shakes it all off, and it comes up, and it's the Argo, and it has to complete this almost impossible task, which the Argo always does. And it takes its hits. It almost gets destroyed, but in the last minute, it comes out swinging, and it wins with its wave motion gun and wave motion engine. The art and the writing and everything is by Phil Foglio, who was not really one of my favorites. I know him mostly from Magic cards. He did quite a few for the first series and the second and third series. And he did a few graphic novels and some other comic book work that I'm not really in tune with it. It's a little too cartoony in a way for me that really didn't fit what I was looking for. I'm sure that other people really love his art, but I just, it's not for me. I'm not saying he's bad. It's just not for me. But in this, he's really great. He takes everything from the show, and he alters it into the comic book format, and it's really fantastic. He has a lot of panels per page often, but he has the characters so simplified, just like the show, that nothing is crowded or hard to read. It all flows very perfectly. Yep, there's lots of action. It doesn't, it's not cramped, and it reads really well. There's lots of different panel variation. Here's a little bit off. All of the characters look exactly like the show, even their 70s pants, which, I wish I had a pair of those. And he designed these cool assassins. So everybody's voice and tone is perfectly done well, and he does a really good job in everything. Look at that awesome shot of the Argo going through hyperspace. So it's a fantastic comic. Starblazers #1. I would highly recommend it to any Starblazers fan. And if you're not a Starblazers fan, you should really watch the cartoon, watch the movies. There's several of them, and this would be a great jumping on point. It's really a great comic, and I would give it a solid 9. There's almost nothing wrong with this book, except for maybe a few little minor details. But let me know what you think about Starblazers, and if you love it as much as I do. And again, if you like this content, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot for watching.